Hey, everybody, welcome to our next guest speaker series in MKT355 Sports Selling and Sales. I'm excited to have our next guest speaker, Dan Kelson, who is the Director of Premium Sales and Service with DC United in the MLS. And Dan is also a St. Joe's alum. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Appreciate you for having me.
Yeah. So Dan, why don't you just quick start, just tell everybody a little bit about your what you do with DC United, your path to the MLS, and we'll just start from there.
Yeah, for sure. So I can give some background of how I got to where I am today, and then a little bit more of what specifically I do. But as mentioned, I went to St. Joe's. Actually, took this exact class when I was there, so I was in the exact same shoes as everyone. And sure, there's probably a few of you in the same boat I was, where the idea of working in sales is a little bit intimidating or not something you ever could see yourself doing or think you would do. And still to this day, I really don't believe I ever work in sales. It's never been my personality, never thought it would be something I would ever do in my life. But here I am all these years later. But I did a bunch of internships when I was in school and different teams in the area and around the Northeast, but I specifically did it with different departments within sports because I wanted to understand not only what I wanted to do, but what I didn't want to do. And out of all of those, the most impactful one that kind of set me on my path was I did a sales internship with the Sixers while I was in school, which was really cool, eye-opening experience. If there's basketball or Sixers fans there, that was the year of the 0-22 season that they started the year, the heyday of the process. So it was super fun to be a part of that. But they basically treated me like a sales associate while I was an intern. They trained me up and they put me on the phone, and I just made cold calls for every day I was in the office with them. So gave me my first real world example of what it would be like to work in sales and sports. And it was a lot to take in. And I definitely can't say I was sold on it from that moment, but it gave me a good insight of like the camaraderie, the competitiveness of sports sales that you have with your teammates and all around you, and how fun and engaging it can be to just be a part of it. And then you learn the sales side of it as you go. So really opened up my eyes. And when I graduated, I was looking at different opportunities. And as you may have heard or will learn, the easiest way to get into the sports industry, regardless of what department you want to end up in eventually, is through ticket sales. There's most teams pretty much across every sport are hiring people almost every year for different inside sales roles or other departments. So it's always easy to get your foot in the door. So I wanted to stay in Philly. So I had a few offers, but I ended up working for the Phillies at a school and sort of their inside sales program that they have there. Did that for a year, which was a lot of fun. I'm a big baseball guy, so that was a dream to work in baseball as well. So I did that for a year and learned a lot, and what I liked about organizations and what I also didn't like as well. And there's some really great people. Still keep in touch with a lot of those there, but it wasn't necessarily the best fit for me and what I needed in an organization. So I ended up looking around and saw an opportunity come down to DC back in 2017 to open up a new stadium, which we moved into Audi Field back in 2018. So I got to come in, be part of the new business team selling ticket packages for our brand new stadium, which was a lot of fun to do that and be a part of a whole new stadium project from the ground up. And have basically been here ever since. I was an account executive on our new business team for a couple of years. And then right before COVID hit, I moved into a manager role, overseeing, basically created our premium sales department. There wasn't a established one at that point, but we used to play at RFK Stadium. If anyone's familiar, very old, not great stadium. There wasn't really premium seating or suites or things there, so there was never a need for it. So I basically built up the department from ground zero myself, and then eventually building a team around it as well. And now over the last year, I've been promoted up to director, where I oversee our premium sales department with our team underneath it, as well as our entire service team. So our service team servicing everything, all of our season ticket holders, all that. So I have a team with a manager that all report into me as well. So basically get to oversee two different departments in my current role, all of our premium suite selling, B2B outreach, all that kind of stuff, as well as all of our service side that we do across the whole ticketing department. But that's a quick little rundown of, what how I got to where I am and a little bit of what I do, but more than happy to dive into any of that or share anything that anyone has interest in learning more about.
Anybody have any questions for Dan? I can also start it off, but if anybody has any questions. Yeah. What you got, Tyler?
Yeah, so you said you did some sales as well as the Phillies. I was just wondering if you noticed any kind of big differences from the Phillies and then going over to the MLS in the sales department, kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, every sport has its differences for sure. But I think at the core, the sales process is fairly similar across. You're just substituting, the products or whatnot. But for us in the MLS, it's very different. When your biggest comparison to say baseball is the number of events. Baseball, there's 81 home games, so there's pretty much a date or an option for everybody because there's just so much opportunities versus the MLS, we have 17 regular season games across the whole year. So it's like 2 or 3 a month, and it's very specific. We typically are on Saturday nights this year in particular with our new Apple TV deal. So it's very different in how we go about it. Like I said, number of events is a big one, but just the way we sell it, every team has their strengths. For us in soccer, if anyone's been to a soccer game, whether it be the Union in Philly or anywhere else, you probably know how kind of engaging the atmosphere is with the supporter sections that are going crazy and stuff. So we sell the experience as our number one sales point. We're not the same level of, name terminology as maybe NFL teams or baseball teams or whatever. But what we do here constantly is our games are the most fun to go to. They're the most engaging, and they're just a fun time for everyone that we do bring out. So we lean into that in our sales process is we're highlighting the experience. The wins and losses obviously is always important and stuff that people care about, but we can't control that. So we control what we can, which is the experience. So that's our big selling point here versus, not saying baseball is not fun for everybody, but it's definitely universally not as engaging to a lot of people as say soccer is. So we really just lean into that in our sales process. And I think that's what's led us to our success that we have.
Dan, I got a question for you. What was it like being involved with the MLS All-Star Game Arsenal match?
Yeah. So if anyone's not familiar, we had the MLS All-Star Game this past July at Audi Field, and it was the MLS All-Stars against Arsenal. So it was a pretty cool experience to be a part of that. So it was a lot of fun. It's All-Star just goes beyond just the one game. It's a whole week long of activities and events and stuff around in and around the city. So we were out and about across the entire DC area, probably the whole week leading up to it, doing cool events and stuff that were player driven, league driven. And we did a lot of entertaining with our clients, trying to, make it a cool event that they get to be a part of as well as us. So that was a lot of fun. But for us, from a sales aspect, we had 2 events that we could really sell. We had the actual MLS All-Star Game, and then the night before is the Skills Challenge, which similar to like the Home Run Derby in baseball or, the slam dunk competition and 3-point contest in NBA. So there's different soccer drills and stuff that they do. So we basically got to sell both, and it was a huge undertaking. We actually, for both events, it was the highest attended events or highest sell-through attended events in league history. For the Skills Challenge was the most ever people they've ever had at one, and since the All-Star Game was enacted, and the All-Star Game was the highest attended event in the history of Audi Field. We went way above our capacity and found room to fit extra people in. And it was the highest revenue that an MLS All-Star Game has ever made. So we did a really good job taking advantage of a lot of stuff, and gave us an opportunity to, not only help our current clients and give them cool experiences and show them the value of partnering with us in the future, currently and in the future, but it allowed us to attract a ton of new buyers, a ton of new people that never engaged with us before, whether they were in DC or outside of it. So it was a lot of fun, cool project to be a part of, and getting to drive a lot of our corporate sales was fun for that one. We almost 5 times our average ticket price that we had for that one. So we made a lot of money on it, which was a lot of fun, to just see how high we could push a lot of our suites and ticket products that we had.
And one of the things that we've talked about early in the semester, I like to go into like the history of ticketing, and I like to talk a little bit about the role of ticket operations in sales. And I'm curious to hear a little bit about your experience from opening up a new stadium, moving from one to the other, and how that sort of processes went in terms of seat selection, selling a new stadium, all of that fun stuff that goes along with opening up a new building.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, for us, we had a season ticket base back at RFK of just over like 1,000 accounts, which isn't a lot, as you probably would think it does. It sounds like, so that whole process began with them getting first priority. That was a huge selling point towards the last year or so of RFK, was buy season tickets for the last year, you get first priority to select seats at the new stadium. So that 1,000-ish accounts all got sorted basically by their tenure. The original season ticket holders that have been from day one of the club got first priority than someone who just bought in that first year. So we basically went through that 1,000. They selected their seats, and then we opened up for new. We basically did a huge for about probably a year or so leading up to a deposit process of people could place deposits to pick seats when the time comes. So we then went through a huge deposit conversion of anyone who had deposits to pick their first seats, and then slowly flipped it live to someone brand new to come in. But that was a lot of fun, a lot of long nights. We had a preview center that we used to sell the new stadium, because obviously for most of the time you can't go to the stadium site really until it's fully constructed. So we've had a lot of long nights of entertaining people, trying to convince them to put down deposits and all that for a year. So that was a different process. It was very unique in that, all we had was pictures, videos of what replicas of the stadium were going to look like. We had talking points, but you're very much just selling a dream. We couldn't physically show them anything. Like, it was all just describing it, which made me and probably most of my teammates at the time better sellers, because it's different. Now our team could just say, come on down, you can sit in the exact seat and you can experience it. I'll let you test drive it for a game. There, you couldn't do that no matter what you wanted to do. So it was always trying to build trust with the buyer to ultimately believe that you're telling them the truth when you're describing it, and ultimately getting them to buy at the end of the day. But that process was a lot. Our ticket ops team at the time was definitely our best friends, because we had to really make sure, one, we had literally the exact seats that we were selling. It seems elementary, but when it comes time to physically building the stadium, it doesn't always map up correctly with what you project in the end. And so there was a process of literally counting every seat once we could get in, to make sure we didn't overpromise or miscommunicate any seats, which we did at the time. So we had to retroactively fix those. But there's a lot that goes into a new stadium, but it's never perfect. But I think everybody, is able to make it fun and get through it as best they can.
Yeah, I've shared some of the great stories and some of the horror stories of opening up Lincoln Financial Field here in Philadelphia. And I always say that everybody should open up a new stadium in their career, but only do it once. So let's open it up to some other questions from some of the students. What do we got here, guys?
Yeah, I have one, Professor.
Okay, Scott.
So who's your biggest target market? Like, who do you usually go after in order to sell tickets?
So my side tends to be when we're talking new business, is on the corporate side of things. We have our other side of the business that our other director oversees, is more of our B2C outreach of things. But on the business side, it's everybody. There's literally no specific company that makes sense. Could be a company that has one employee or 10,000. Could be a company that makes $10,000 a year, or a company that makes 10 billion. We have people that do everything under the sun. We specifically try and create products that attract everybody. So it's all about understanding what makes sense for them. So for us, my premium sales team, we take a very consultative approach. We really try to understand the company, how they operate, and try and find where we can help them and add value for them to partner with us on a suite or a premium ticket package or whatever it might be. So there's really no one size fit all. It's no reach out to this company and you're guaranteed to get a sale. Like every single thing we do is really just being a consultant first and then finding what product makes sense. But I mean, we have suite holders of ours that are cleaning companies that are mom and pop you've never heard of, all the way up to Amazon having a suite with us. We partner with everything in between. It really just comes down to that best fit. But so when we target on people on the corporate side, it's almost not very specific in terms of industry. We target industries at a given time. So like one of my guys is really heavily invested in the construction industry. He has a lot of construction companies he works with every year. So when he reaches out to a new one, he introduces himself as, Sean with DC United, and he goes through and he talks about, here's some cool things that I'm currently doing in your space with some of your competitors. He name drops them, tells them a little bit of what he does with them, and then says the line, our hook line is, not sure if that makes sense for your business, but I'm reaching out to see if it could. Do you have another 15 minutes now, or can we set up a call to talk through that more? And when you're adding in their competitors and what they do a little bit, people get really interested because they don't want their competitors doing something they don't. So it gets them hooked in wanting to learn more. And we use that to add credibility, but also to just gather their interest initially. So we will use industries for that reason, but otherwise, we're really just digging into the high, C-level people, head of marketing, heads of HR, head of sales. Those are kind of the key people we target within companies.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Anybody else ready to? Dan, I got a question for you, Dan. I'll ask another question. What characteristic do you think makes a good salesperson? And is it the same for the role of service?
So no, I would say they're different. Typically everyone starts in sales and then you identify who makes sense in service off of it. But I think it takes a special person to be able to do service in particular. But what makes up a good salesperson? I mean, obviously the obvious ones like a good work ethic, all that kind of stuff. I think that's it sounds elementary in its own right, but people who work the hardest tend to do the best in sales. It ends up being a numbers game at the end of the day. The more calls you make, the more touch points you do, more likely you're going to have conversations, and more conversations equal to sales at the end of the day. It's very much math driven. We're hugely invested in analytics, and every single tool that we use in analytics, it always shows the same things, and it always comes back to that. But I think the biggest thing is in sales in particular is your mindset and being positive. There are going to be days where you'll make 60 to 100 phone calls and not have one conversation or one positive conversation at least. And that can, it might sound like, it is what it is, but in the moment, it can really break you mentally when you're doing that day in, day out, and you're just putting your foot down, trying to do as much as you can, and you're just getting no success. But those who can push through that end up being, I think, the most successful. So I think those are hard work and positivity are the biggest two on the sales side, because it's going to be a grind at times, especially your first job in the sales. It's not easy by any mindset, but I think that's what allowed me to really get to where I did and be successful. Was I don't think I'm still the best salesperson. I don't think I'm, can outsell anybody, but I can outwork everybody. And that's what I did. Like I said, wasn't the best salesman on our team, but I was #1 in revenue for years, got league awards, all that stuff, just because I out hustled everybody. If someone made 70 calls, I was making 75. I didn't want to just sit back and let people outwork me. So I think that's the big thing in the sales side of things, is just putting your head down and going. Inside sales in particular is tough at times, but once you get through that and hopefully get promoted out of it and into an account executive role, it becomes a lot easier, hopefully. And on the service side, it's definitely more on the positive side is the biggest thing. You're going to have some, and relationship building is the biggest one. On the service side is, our service team, they oversee some upwards of 700 accounts each. And you develop relationships when you work with them over the years with each other, where some of them become your friends, and you can seriously just talk about not soccer, anything soccer related. You're just there as a person for them to lean on, or vice versa. So we really look for people who are good at building relationships and can remain positive. We just finished our renewal cycle last Friday, and renewals is the toughest time on the year for service reps, because that's when they're dealing with all the people trying to cancel, or that's when a lot of negativity will come up. But again, being positive, trying to break down objections and really overcome them. It becomes fun if you're able to keep a good mindset on it and try and challenge yourself to overcome everything. But I think the relationship side is what overcomes a lot of those, when you know why they have tickets in the first place, their families, their companies. Those are how you overcome a lot of that. So we really look for on the service side is someone who's very relationship driven, people who really want to understand and get to know people, build rapport effectively. Those are the people we look for on the service side, because it's very much we're not worried about you churning and going through and talking to a lot of people. We want, the qualitative side. We want it to be quality relationships, quality calls every time. So it takes sometimes a special person to be able to focus in on that and not just rush through to hit a quota or number of calls. It's getting to know them as best you can.
Dan, what's the are you originally from Philadelphia, or are you where are you originally from?
I'm from Jersey originally. Freehold, if anyone knows where that is, it's Bruce Springsteen's hometown. So that's our claim to fame, about an hour outside of Philly. So fortunately, always am a New York sports fan first. So that was always fun, working for the Phillies as a Mets fan. Yeah, I still always try and make it back to that area as much as I can.
So I asked that question because I'm always curious, and I tell the students all the time, you have to be willing to travel for opportunities, because there are limited opportunities in here in Philadelphia. We know we've got the 5 major teams, but still there are limited job opportunities even with five professional teams here in the city. So I guess my question was, what was it like going to a new market like DC, and how did you acclimate yourself to the business community, to getting your foot in, just to kind of get established to be able then to meet your sales goals?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was tough. When I moved to DC, I didn't know anyone in the city personally or anything. So it was definitely a kind of a wake up call. Like I said, I wanted to stay in Philly because I had friends still going to be in the area and not too far away from family and all that stuff. But going down to DC was kind of taking an approach of something I never really putting myself in a situation I've really never been before, of a brand new city with no one. But I think one thing that I learned, and why I really probably am still here in DC, is the people that I met along the way, is especially at the office, is we become a family pretty quickly. The one good thing about DC as a city in general is the very transient market. There aren't many people truly from like DC or from the area. A lot of people are from out of town, whether it be for their jobs, and mostly their jobs that they come through in. So a lot of people in the city are just more willing to accept you or be outgoing in general, which has been fun to see. But some of my best friends are people I worked with still currently or did at the time. And it's all because of the relationships that you build in sports in particular. It's a lot of long hours, a lot of long nights. You're going to spend a lot of time sometimes with them more than you will your personal friends or your family, depending on what is, especially like baseball where you have so many games. So you start to really develop good, true friendships with each other, and you're in the trenches together. So they understand your lifestyle of, working an entire weekend straight without, working Friday, Saturday, Sunday straight. To some people not in sports, they think you're crazy for doing that. But when you're talking about with people who are there doing it with you, that it becomes a little bit of an easier conversation and allows you to kind of be yourself a little bit more. But in DC in general, like I said, everybody for the most part understands that, most people aren't there. They were there at one point in themselves. So acclimating to the business community wasn't hard at all. Just going to branch yourself out there and put yourself in situations to meet people is the big thing. So, whether it's boards of trade or other things or chambers and things that we have and that are set up for networking events, just trying to be a part of that and putting my name and face out there. It goes a long way, even if you don't necessarily go and talk to someone. I've had people be like, I've seen you at all these events. I had to just come up and say hello and introduce myself. I see you always have a DC United pin on. I just wanted to let you know I'm a huge soccer fan. And then you end up just talking and it opens up the conversation from there. So DC's been good with that, but I think DC and any city really can offer up anything you want as long as you put yourself out there.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. What other questions? Anybody else have any questions ready for Dan?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
So you mentioned how you use like analytics and data and how it plays a role. I was wondering what specifics do you look for in the data and analytics to like optimize your sales and services?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I sit typically like right behind our analytics and data team because I'm just constantly up in their ear asking them questions or asking them to create reports for me. But I look at it for everything. It's not just sales, but strategy pieces that we do as well. So, I mean, from a sales side of things, we have CRM systems and all that, but we build reports on top of it of tracking specific things. So I'm looking at, their connected call percentages and trying to understand what cadences we're running and how successful they are, what email touch points are creating the best response rates or open rates. And then we're A/B testing them off of it and seeing how the data reacts if we change up certain subject lines, if we change up a couple word phrases or things like that, and seeing if we see any potential change in behavior. So we're constantly watching that stuff when we're in the true sales process of the specific touch points. If something's different, if we email someone first versus call, do we see any potential change in behavior? We're watching all that stuff. So that's it from a sales side. From strategy side, a lot of times comes to us predicting things and trying to see where we net out and so we can get better in the future. So we're predicting before our renewal process, we were predicting based on certain criteria what we expect it to be, or we're predicting every single game day how many tickets we project from a model we're going to sell. And then we see how close we get and we fix and fine tune the model so we get smarter and better in the future. Like on our game day trackers, there are games we project months out and we have finished within 10 tickets sold of that number because of our models that we project. Or season ticket renewals, sometimes it's better. Our model predicted us almost 10% lower than what we did. So that was a bad predictor, and we're going to look into the data to understand why it was wrong in that sense. But it was a good type of wrong because we did better. But I make decisions based on what the data tells us, and also mixing in buying behavior, looking around the league, understanding what other teams in the market or other places are doing. And we're just trying to, put our team in the best position as possible that we can.
All right, good question there. I like that one. Anybody else? Well, I'll ask you a question, Dan. So it's kind of the timing of it's kind of interesting. So earlier this week, I gave the students and sent the students over an opportunity with the Phillies, and they're looking to hire an inside sales rep position. And it's one of the first times in a long time I actually have seen it on Teamwork Online. Usually they promote from within. So having the fact that you had that position at one time, what would be some recommendations on what to highlight in a cover letter, or what to highlight, or what to expect during an interview process? What sort of inside information can you give us about that position?
Well, I'm assuming it's still probably being reporting into Ryan Simon, who's one of my good friends. So you can always name drop me. They'll probably butter him up. But besides that, I think as I mentioned, baseball is not for everybody to work in. It's a lot of long days, long hours, stuff like that. Just true nature of the season and how many games there are. But they are a very family-oriented organization. A lot of people there have been there 10, 15, 20 plus years. So they're very much a family, which is good in its sense that, they're going to welcome you with open arms your day one there. So that's always been something why I always thought highly of them. But they're definitely obviously on the field has been better the last couple of years for them. So they're now trying to just really take it to the next level. I believe they just hit some huge revenue targets this year that they were really striving for. But for them, I think it's how can you come in and push the envelope more? They're selling out a lot of games, which is good, but they're constantly trying to get back to the old ways where they sold out. I think it was like 100 something consecutive games. So it's all about how you can add value and what you're going to bring to the table. So that's what I would really highlight in any sort of interview process is, how you're going to, outwork the person next to you, but also, how you plan on trying to stand out from the crowd and how you're going to add value to them. Because I think, that's what everyone's unique. No one sells the same way, but it's, what are your interests? Why do you want to work in baseball? Those are the two big questions that they'll probably ask you about, because it's not, like I said, it's not for everyone, and they can kind of pull out potential red flags pretty quickly if you're not willing to get in and go for it. So I think being prepared to talk about why you're willing to get into it with them, because I think that's what they really want to look for is they want people who fit a certain mold. Because like I said, they're a family there, and they want certain types of people that will fit in well with their culture.
There you go. Yeah, I think I saw that they sold 3 million tickets this season, which is a monster number to hit, given their capacity. So that just shows that again, winning affects everything here. And in Philadelphia, it's a strong market. When you got a winning product on the field, you can do a lot there on the sales side. Any other questions from you guys? I know we got a few more minutes here with Dan, and I want to make sure we take full advantage of it. Right. All right, Dan. Let me ask you this question. What do you love most about working in sports and in the MLS?
Working in sports, I think at the end of the day is like when you are at the game days, it maybe is like I said, soccer is a little bit different in baseball where there's not as many, but when we do have our game days, it's exciting for me to see all the hard work pay off. When you walk around a full stadium and you see, all the fans having fun and living and dying by every shot or pass that's made in our games, it's exciting. And it makes you feel that sense of accomplishment when you see it. Because, especially if you have a little bit of a break between games, you're going to have some days where you're going to, have some negativity creep up or whatever. And you're going to go through some rough stretches of not selling well. But when you see it on a game day and see all your hard work pay off, it brings that satisfaction, that joy. So that's always been my favorite thing about working in sports is being able to, see your hard work in such an exciting way. And it's a very tangible way to see it come out. And then in soccer, I mean, it's obviously, if everyone knows, like the league continue to grow with Messi and some of these big names coming in, it's seeing the evolution in my 6 years of being in the MLS. It's seeing how much the league's grown, not only from revenue side, number of team side, but just growing the game within America. We see it just in DC, how much it's grown. So being able to be a part of not only, a team that's trying to really make a name for itself, but a league has been the best part about working the MLS so far.
All right. Adrian, you have a question?
Yeah, it was actually kind of based off of like the market of soccer because I know, of course, it's like not as popular as like, football, basketball, like MLB. So like what has been your experience with that? I know you just kind of touched upon it a little bit, but like I'd like to know a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely comes up more than you think it does, especially in the corporate selling side of things of, people saying, we're used to it where we reach out to a CEO and they say, I've got tickets with the Capitals and the Nats and I'm good. I don't, my clients don't care about soccer. I don't care. I'm a baseball guy. As long as I have my Nats tickets, I'm happy. I don't think we need this. So we hear it quite a bit, especially in a market where there is every single professional sports team like Philly, there is too. So it's a crowded space that you have to navigate. But I think I might have mentioned a little bit earlier, it's leaning into the things that we do well, which is the atmosphere and the experience that we provide. It's not 100%, but pretty close to well above 90%, I would say, of companies we get down to experience a game day in person to either creating a conversation or end up buying with us. It's real because people are so used to the same old. Everyone's been to a Nats game here in DC. Our stadium's across the street from it. We see it every day, but everyone in DC's been to a game and they go probably every single year. So we try and leverage that with, I'm sure you do that. It's great. Your employees love it. But do you think it's maybe gone a little stale that they do this every single year? Like, why don't we do something cool and exciting and shake it up? And once you get people hooked or to think about it, when we get them down and experience it, we usually can sell it pretty strongly. Cause like I said, it's the atmosphere. It's different than any other sports stadium here or their sports experience. And we just embrace why we're different. And I think people, see it and they hopefully always end up joining us or at least trying to enjoy it or experience it with us.
Yeah, good question. I see soccer as growing. I mean, there was over the years, there was a concern of, is soccer going to be the fifth major league? And I don't think there's a doubt now that it really is here in the United States. And I think it's continued to grow. And I think part of that's technology and access to soccer, worldwide soccer now. And I think has the Apple deal helped you a little bit too?
Yes and no. I mean, it makes it a little bit harder for just a natural fan to stumble upon the sport because it's all behind a paywall. It's not free. Just even if you have Apple TV, you have to buy a specific MLS subscription. So once you have people on it, it's nice. I think the Messi thing has been probably the biggest grower this year, at least. And I think that's not shocking news to probably anybody who's any bit soccer fan. But I think it gave us a little bit, one, it gives us more revenue than we ever had before. So that's a big factor, what led to it. But two, it kind of made us, hopefully pioneers. I mean, a lot of the other leagues have ventured into it, and they're like Thursday Night Football for the NFL, they do on Amazon Prime. MLB's has some Friday night Apple TV deals themselves, but no one's fully just dove into it and went with a purely streaming only option. So we're hoping and expecting we will eventually, that's going to become the norm. And we're just the first of what other leagues will do around the league or around other sports. So I think, it hasn't maybe hit fully yet, but I think we're trying to hopefully pave the way for the future of sports viewing.
Great. It's awesome. All right, so we're kind of butted up against it. I would say, Dan, if any of the students want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
You can either hit me up on LinkedIn or my email address is just dkelson@dcunited.com. So you can email me there as well. But more than happy to talk through anything more with anyone or any advice or anything. I'm always love giving back to St. Joe's any way I can, or helping anyone break into the industry. So definitely let me know if I could help with anything.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll be in touch, and good luck with the rest of the season.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.